Know Your Builder, the podcast where we interview and highlight builders from the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm Sinkas, joined together with Christoph from Altibit, and today you can get a hint of what we're going to be discussing since we're not on Google Meets, but rather we're on Huddle, and we're joined by Huddle CEO Ayush. Ayush, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Sinkas, great to meet you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in and get to learn a little bit more about you and what Huddle is.
Yeah, absolutely. Ayush, the co-founder and CEO of Huddle01. Started Huddle back in 2020. It's a decentralized physical infrastructure network for real-time connectivity. That means anything low latency, high bandwidth could be powered by a network. We are the one with the world's first demand first deepen network. That means we first build demand and then we build the supply side of the network. By demand, I mean is the app which we are using here to do this call, to do the podcast, and to do the recording, which is Huddle01 Meet. Very similar to Google Meet, very similar to Zoom, but completely built in a peer-to-peer decentralized fashion. This app runs on top of our own network, which essentially doesn't use AWS, but is a network of node operators who have good bandwidth and good quality of compute. And they are the ones who power these calls. We have more than 3,000 of these node operators all across the earth, because of which this network runs on. And yeah, we have done more than 1 million minutes of meeting so far on the app side of things, and we have crossed more than 500 million minutes of meeting on the app, which is completely powered by this own set of network. We're a team of 20 people. I and Sushmit are two co-founders who started together, and we come from a background. We work together in university as well. We studied together as well, and now it's a hackathon project we turned into a company in the last 4.5 years, 4.5 and 5 years of our journey.
Okay, so Huddle01 is basically not exactly that, but like the front facing thing that we see and understand what Huddle is about, but rather it's more than that, and it's kind of like the infrastructure behind it.
Absolutely. So it's a tip of the iceberg. The app is the way to interact with the network. And app is one of the things which you use to understand how powerful this network is. This network could be used for anything. It could be used for streaming. It could be used for real-time communication. It could be used for not only just audio video streaming, but any kind of data streaming. We started by building it for video and audio because that's what humans need the most to interact, to coordinate, to collaborate, and to essentially have a good time. And essentially that has the maximum impact. So that was and we also had worked on this technology of WebRTC before, which is Web Real Time Communication Protocol, and that's the reason why we wanted to build this. So it was a long, long journey. We started back in 2020, end that like almost 4.5 years. And the good part is that now we are seeing value, because when we see almost 1 million minutes of meeting done, where people 1 million meeting done and 500 million minutes of meeting done, we realize that how people like using a people powered app.
And can you explain to us a bit more what is this network? And we know that this network is built on the Arbitrum. So can you explain to us more like how does it exactly work and what is Arbitrum's role in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this network is like any kind of network, whenever after Web 1.0, the whole thesis was to make sure that internet basically remains people powered. But as soon as Web 2.0 came, that's when the whole rise of clouds started to happen, and that's where we just had computers sitting in North Virginia, and that became wrapped into something called as cloud. Uh, and then over time, when we started building Huddle, that's when we had realized this, that Zoom, the problem is not with Zoom. The problem is with underlying network on which Zoom runs on. So if you and I are doing a call right now, and you are in, let's suppose, in Europe, I am in India, and we are doing a call itself, the servers are generally in US, which makes no sense because these are continents away. And because of that, the quality of call becomes really bad. The performance is bad, and also there is a huge privacy concerns at the end of the day. That's where we realize that you don't require this the clouds for any kind of these bandwidth based tasks. So that's where we built Huddle01 network, where if you have unused bandwidth, if you have unused compute, majorly towards bandwidth, you can power any kind of real time communication calls. So Huddle01 network is that it's essentially a network of people who have good amount of internet connection, both as running it themselves or running it on any kind of their own mini data centers, which they have at their own home or near their own homes, and they are the ones who can just power this. So it creates a new Airbnb for real time connectivity kind of an experience. And while we're building this network, we realized where should this network be ported on, and that's where we had been discussing a lot, that where should our deepin technically sit on, which network should it be a part of, which, and that's where Arbitrum played a very important role for us there, when we were making sure that how should we selectively choose on which network should be ported on. So Huddle01's network technically is sitting on its own L3, the layer 3, which is an orbit chain, which is on top of Arbitrum itself. Multiple reasons why we made sure that it should be a layer 3, because we wanted to build on a chain which is credibly neutral, but also has a kind of has a lot of liquidity towards its side. Because to building the supply side of the network, what you require is a lot of node operators, which also requires liquidity on top of the network. Also, with stylus, it became very easy for us to basically customize our gas fees and play around all of these things that you wanted to play around with. So right now we are able to customize our gas fees, do a lot of things which is possible, and just real-time communication became just one part of it. Real-time connectivity is the major part, and that's where we were able to work. And there were so many awesome partners on the RAS. That means we play with Caldera being our RAS partner, making sure that it's very easy to port on top of basically build your own layer 3 on top of Arbitrum itself. So that's the whole journey. The app side, the network sits on top of our own layer 3. The layer 3 essentially is an orbit chain which uses Caldera to make sure that this layer 3 is easily basically being created. So that's the whole kind of journey stack of Huddle01.
And is it correct that the network is being used to distribute payments for being part of this network, or what else is there? Like, is there a communication on chain? Like, what exactly is on chain in this network?
Yeah, absolutely. So any kind of, so right now on this network, any kind of bandwidth related thing which happens. So the biggest thing which is problem on AWS or GCP is that uh, they pay $1 to an ISP, internet service provider, but they charge $80 to Zoom. So it's an 80x multiplier just for brokering the bandwidth. So what they do is that they broker the bandwidth, but the cost which they give to you and me via Zoom is at a 80x multiplier in that sense. And that's the reason why we pay $14 or $16 to Zoom, which could have been virtually $3 or $4 at the end of the day. So that's the whole role where we need to make sure that this sits on top of creating this network where the egress cost, the cost of internet, is not at a very different scale altogether. Now, in terms of what all things goes on chain, there are a lot of things which goes on chain. Number one, we need to do a proof of bandwidth, or to make sure that the call quality which we have done, that there's no packet drop which is happening. So you have to see that the call quality is pretty good. So that's one thing which goes on chain. The second thing which is QoS, quality of service, making sure that the service of the quality of the call is less than 100 milliseconds of latency. The call which I'm doing with you right now, if I just do a quick screen share actually and show it to you, this essentially also goes on chain. So for example, I just do here, let's see what is the call quality. So I'm having a latency of 25 milliseconds or 26 milliseconds. Now this basically talks about how good is the quality of service of this call. Now all of this data goes on chain, which gives us a very good kind of value indicator to make sure that this node operators performs well, and then we create a rating system. And based on that, similar to what Uber or Airbnb does in the Web2 world, we do that in the Web3 world in terms of the whole marketplace. So these are things which goes on chain to make sure that the quality of the network is robust and good enough. And over time, it can handle traffic of Zoom and all the even other kind of real-time connectivity apps which are across the world.
So, like, the analogy that I make for myself is like, I'm old enough that I remember a project called SETI at home, where we were all analyzing signals from some telescope to try find aliens in the space. And the same way you like, and we were running this on all the computers at school. So all the computers in my school were finding aliens. So the same here goes for you, like with your project, that anybody that has some spare bandwidth, they can join Huddle network and share their bandwidth by like monetizing it in a
Yeah,
way, and
absolutely.
your network optimizes the utilization of this the distributed network of service providers.
Yeah, that's a great inference which you use there. That's how it works. And what we create is that we create something called as cascaded networks. That means rather than, so what happens in blockchain is which we call sharding. Huddle does reverse of sharding. We do something called as cascading. So cascading is that we try to make sure these small nodes, they become a big powerful node of network, so that we can handle as much quality of call as possible. And yes, for providing bandwidth, you earn Huddle basically token as reward, and that becomes kind of your data credit at the end of the day.
Awesome. And sorry, Sinkat, because I want to like follow up on that
Go ahead.
because you mentioned that this Huddle01 meet is just one use case that you created in order to showcase the possibilities of this network. Because like it's easy to understand, like everybody knows Google Meet. So and also this is a good use case for this bandwidth usage. But as I understand correctly, like your network is made for any kind of bandwidth. You know any kind of service that requires a lot of bandwidth. So let's say game streaming, distributed virtual desktops, stuff like that, right? And
Absolutely.
if you could share the screen, because like it's hard to demo the thing that we are currently using to record this, but I would like you to demo to our listeners and viewers a bit like what Huddle is. Maybe you could share the screen and show us like what exactly, like how can somebody build on top of Huddle, and where should they go look for information, documentation, and what are the things that they could do with it, like how to start building on Huddle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you pointed correctly that what all things is possible. So I'll just cover that part. So you can do any kind of thing which requires low latency and high bandwidth. Real time communication is one use case. Streaming is other. Playing games together is another. So Google Stadia, like that was one of the use cases which essentially was very good. Like, but the problem with Stadia was also the egress cost. It was so high, and the performance was so low that they needed to essentially make sure that the project takes a kind of a resultantly more backseat. And the whole problem of that was how the current internet was built. So right now the way internet was is built and the way optic fiber cable lines was laid out, it was not laid out for speed. It was laid out for more cheaper kind of costings while basically relaying audio and video, any kind of data packets. With Huddle01, we changed that slightly because we don't just rely on these bigger data centers, but and now since with the upcoming of 5G and now also 6G, now people have enough bandwidth to power these calls themselves rather than relying on a data center. Now, going into detail on what essentially the three-pronged approach, I'll just show what Huddle01 is right now, what on the app side, on the network side, and also how you can build on top of it. So there you go. I'll just quickly screen share. So on the app side of things, I'll just basically show this is huddle01.com. This is the network page where you can see that what all things are possible. Like this network is node list of all the node operators where who are contributing bandwidth to the network. So there are multiple ways to use it. So first is the Huddle01 network, which is the network on which Huddle01 runs right now. So this call right now is running on a node which is situated between here and here in India. So this is where these nodes are located on and which runs, and that's how the Huddle01 meet call right now is running. There are a lot of node operators, maximum of them right now in terms of node operators, they are in different parts of the world. Majority of them are in essentially the Europe region, the US region, the APAC region, and also some areas in Africa, Australia. And now the whole idea is to increase the nodes in African region and South American region because that's where the least amount of servers are there. And that's the reason why it's very difficult for people in the continents of South America or in the continent of Africa to have a very good quality of call. Also in some other areas where there are no servers or data centers at the end of the day. So this is the Huddle01 network, the main building block or the supply side of the network. On the demand side of the network, we have two major apps which we have built ourselves. The reason why we built it ourselves is because we have seen that a lot, that in a lot of deepen based use cases, people build supply. It's not very hard to build supply because technically you're giving incentives, and because of which people are just giving their hardware to you as a rent, because they are essentially getting a value back for providing any kind of assets in terms of bandwidth or computer storage, the three building blocks of internet. But what is more important is that how do you get demand? How do you build demand? And there are multiple ways to go about it. We took an approach of building the demand ourselves first, and that's where we built Huddle01 Meet app, which we are using here. And second is Farhouse, which is another app built by Huddle01 on Farcaster as well. So if I just go here, I can just launch. As soon as I launch it, I can log in via any of the ways. I can use my MetaMask, my Phantom, my email, or also my Google login. So let's, for simplicity, I'm just logging in via, let's suppose, Google. I just sign in. As soon as I sign in, I'll be able to basically do all the things which I'm doing on Google Meet and Zoom. I go to my dashboard. I just create my own. I start my meeting. I can do, it's way more powerful than Google Meet and Zoom in that cases. We have just built a full-fledged product where you can do everything, an audio meeting, a video meeting, you can start that. It's free, and then there is a plan of $8, and then there's a plan of $49 in terms of pro plan and business plan. Here I can just start my meeting. I can also schedule a meeting. If I schedule a meeting, I can actually token gate this meeting with let's suppose an ERC20. I can just choose any kind of chain. I can choose Arbitrum here, and I can just paste a contract address, and then I can make a token gated ARB call. So if I want to do a ARB DAO call, only people who have Arbitrum in their MetaMask, they only can join the call. That's only possible via Huddle01. So that creates a kind of token gated experience of call, which basically makes it even more lucrative for people who are more Web3 native at the end of the day. I start my meeting. As soon as I start my meeting, you'll see a screen. I can use my NFTs, whatever NFT I have on ETH, on Polygon, on Arbitrum, on BNB, on all the other places, and I can just use it to do. I can use all my NFTs which I have on my Arbitrum. I can just use that NFT as my avatar. So if I switch off my video, I can use my NFT. This is my Ethereum NFT which I'm using here. It's a chain runner back in the day, and then I can just start my meeting. As soon as I start my meeting, it's very similar to how it is on all the other places. I record this call. Interestingly, this call gets recorded over IPFS and Filecoin. So if you are doing a public call, you can just record that call and store over IPFS. On the hot storage and the cold storage, you can store it over your own laptop. You can store it over Filecoin, or you can store it essentially also over S3 or Glacier based on wherever your preference is. Though
Excuse
the
me,
best,
Ayush,
yeah, yeah.
regarding the recording, where is the recording being made? Is it made, like, because we are right now recording this call, is it being made on the network or is it being made on one of our computers? Like, where is exactly recording happening?
Yeah, so this recording is happening on one of the networks, which is here. This is where the recording is happening at the end of the day, and then this recording gets basically stored on the hot storage on IPFS and on the cold storage on Filecoin or on AWS S3 or on Glacier.
Okay, thank you.
And then essentially, as soon as I do that, the best part here is that it's very similar. There can be 1,000 people on this call, similar to Google Meet and Zoom. It's as scalable as that. And I can just live stream this call onto 5 places in one click. So this is something which is not possible on all any of the other apps in general. So I can just live stream on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, X, or any custom RTMP like Instagram or TikTok or any other, or Kick, all in one click. So that makes Huddle Meet the only platform in the world for creators to do video conferencing and live streaming at once. So I can do one to many and many to many at once, and that creates a very good distribution channel for a creator who needs massive distribution in one click. So a lot of people start using Huddle01 because of that in terms of the Meet platform. So this is how the Meet works. Now the good thing is that this Meet platform is built using our own SDKs. So these are our SDKs where you can just build any of, so you get your own key basically, and then you can just start building. And this is how it essentially works. Like you can get your, you can start your meeting, you get your own endpoint, and then you can just see how you can build your own joint room token, how you can build your own metrics and stuff like that. So giving you an example here, so people just go, it's a self-serve. I can create your own meeting room API. I can create my own session list API, my own participant list API. I can get my own metadata. So I can do all these things. So I can create my own real-time communication kind of environment using the APIs and SDKs of Huddle01. And there's one use case which I can just show here is also something called as lens peer, which is more like I can basically, which is more towards how I can show that people who are using basically this. So this is one of the apps on top of Lens, which basically makes sure that you can kind of do audio spaces in top of on top of Huddle01 now, basically on top of your own network. So it's more like an X comparator, and if you want to build audio spaces on top of it, it's very easy to use just our API keys and just build in audio spaces. The same game here is a Farhouse. So Farhouse is an audio spaces on Farcaster, which essentially is built by us, but uses the same list of APIs, which are mentioned here. And then basically it becomes as scalable call, but very cheap, very performant, and also has all these Web3 native things like token gating and stuff via the API keys, which are not possible via any of the other SDKs in the Web2 world which you use. So now the good part is that you can use SDKs for any kind of thing, not just audio, video, but any kind of streaming, data streaming, and any other things. You can use our SDKs for that part as well. So this is more or less the app side, the network side, and the middleware side of things on how this whole network runs on, and this sits on top of Arbitrum as a layer 3.
Lots of information to unpack there. But that was good. Thank you for the quick rundown of everything. I want to ask a more high level. Like, it's clear that you've been busy building, let's say. Um, so I wanted to ask a more broad question that would touch on all these things that you've built so far. And that would be, what are the challenges with building such tools and such a network? And more so like on the network side, I guess, because it affects most other apps and things you've built. So what are the challenges with building such a network and using the blockchain to do it?
I think the hardest, it's a great question, Sinkas, and I think the hardest problem which we have seen while building this network is that you need to deal with a basically a latency of less than 50 milliseconds while chatting with, and that to cross continentally. It's a very hard engineering problem to solve. So that's one of the biggest kind of challenges which we had faced. That how do you make sure that the packet drop doesn't happen? How do you make sure that the call quality remains good? How do you make sure that there is no stale peer or any kind of other hacks which could happen on top of this? So basically a lot of things on performance, on jitter, on buffer is what we needed to basically solve for. And I really believe that it's one of the hardest problems to solve because you're technically dealing with the internet, and that too at a very high, very low latency which you need to solve for. So that was the biggest problem of building this on the network side. On the app side, the biggest problem is to get network effects, because it's not a completely financial product. It's a product which needs to derive its value from network effects on the app. That means app needs to become very good to drive a lot of network effects, and because of the network effects is how the network will actually run. So yeah, on the app side, the biggest problem for us to solve was network effects, which we have now solved via multiple things. Number one being having the 10x feature in terms of multi-live streaming, which gave us that utility. And the second part which we solved was also having the incentives system which crypto provides you, making sure that you get a lot of top funnel at the end of the day. That's on the app side. And the network side, biggest problem was engineering, which was to make sure that the packet drops don't happen and you have a latency of less than 50 milliseconds while chatting with each other. And it's a pretty big problem to solve, because when COVID was happening, was at its peak in 2021, a lot of people in places in India used to use Huddle01 Meet app rather than using Zoom and Google Meet, because the quality of call was better and they were actually able to do with don't have, it didn't have to basically just rely on Zoom or any other platforms. And for last 1 year they were just having a lot of rote learning experience, because they had to use Zoom in tandem with something like WhatsApp to just understand what did the teacher say. So it has massive problems. And now we also have a community from Nigeria and other places, and we notice this substantially high difference when they use Huddle01 Meet versus they use something like Zoom, and we can hear them clearly. We see the call quality being better, and we really believe that it will make the overall impact for coordination between humans much more better if we just keep making the network better.
Understandable. So it was mostly like engineering problem, but did they have to do with the fact that you're building like this network and the nodes and like everything kind of like more decentralized? And if you were using servers like centralized servers like Amazon Web Service, for example, stuff like that, it would be already mitigated, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's I'm less technical. Like Crystal would be the tech nerd from our side, so I have to ask these dumb questions. All right.
Actually, a fun fact is that like 20 years ago, I've been doing this QoS on networks myself because I was running an internet, kind of like an internet provider service with 128 kilobyte per second, you know,
Wow.
one. So, and I was fueling like 20 apartments with this 128 kilobits per second network. So yeah, like I totally understand your challenges.
Thank you. It's really heartening to know that. But yeah, 20 years ago, it's massive. Yeah.
But I would like to follow up on Sinka's question because like you are building two like you are facing two challenges. Like one is building this whole infrastructure and this this quite challenging project in itself on the middle layer side, but you are also building in crypto. And what were the challenges of building in crypto with crypto communities for crypto communities? And on top of Arbitrum.
Yeah, I think we really when we started building, one thing which we were very hardcore on was that we'll just make it very Web3 native. That is our beachhead. So we'll just target only people in crypto, Web3 native. And then there was only way to sign in into Huddle Neat was via MetaMask or via Phantom or via sign in via ETH and all those things. And we realized very soon that even the wallets were maturing, and a lot of people didn't want to just use wallets as a way of entering any kind of entering the applications in general. Uh, and that's where we had this kind of concept of something called as mom's test. That means can my mom also use this app? And that's where we added this thing of guest, login via guest. I don't need any of your details, just log in via guest, put your name, come into the call. Or if you want to use Google as well, give an optionality to people. And that was the biggest kind of turning point even in our mental models, that yes, we are a web3 native first, but it should not be hard for people to just use this platform. Same goes with token gating and all those things. Those were more like on top of our feature sets, but then we just made sure that that became over time a kind of an ancillary feature set rather than the top feature set at the end of the day, because DAOs were maturing at different pace. 2020 DAO versus 2025 DAO is very different. 5 years they haven't seen a lot of things, a lot of structures came in. At one point there were more DAO platforms than even DAOs in general. So we had to adapt a lot while seeing this crest and troughs of the market, on how the crypto behaviorally is changing in terms of products. That was one of the biggest ones. And the second one was that uh, just having a beachhead of crypto might not be the best way. The better beachhead is maybe niche creators, and then those niche creators love these ancillary crypto based feature sets rather than crypto being the beachhead. So those mental models was the biggest challenge, at least on the network effects point of view.
You know what? I really like this approach in the sense that like I see that often from crypto's most popular use case, DeFi, and regardless of how easy we make the UX for DeFi apps, it's always going to be something that not all kind of users use. What I mean by that is I can you can make a DeFi app easily reachable and my mom could connect to it and everything, but she won't because it doesn't do that, right? And I also try to explain that to friends when they are asking me, "Hey, can I invest in crypto?" Like, well, do you invest in general? Do you have that mindset? And whereas apps like Huddle, for example, like everyone, especially after COVID, everyone does video meetings, right? And you don't need to know where it's built, how it's working, the network behind it. If you just want to use it, you can just connect with your Google and you're using Huddle. I
Hmm.
really like this approach, and I think that's kind of like a big way forward for many of those apps and for many of those chains as well. Like build things that people want to use first and foremost, and that they can use them. They're accessible, and the UX is easy to understand and
Yeah,
intuitive.
absolutely. This is something, Sinkas, when my mom used to do yoga classes on Zoom, is when I realized this, that there is some issue, like even like not using your son's own app, would be some problem there. So, and that's where we just added all these features, like login via guest and stuff like that, so the yoga instructor could also use it. And now they could just see some crypto things like, okay, this token gated meeting, okay, I don't want to use it right now, maybe in future. So it becomes more ancillary, and people who actually are more in depth, it's more like a developer mode kind of thing, right? Like I can add a developer mode, and if you are a crypto native person, you just have that developer mode activated and you can just use all the crypto native
Yeah, yeah.
powerful things which are out there.
Really like this approach. Like the old company I used to work at, they did that kind of things where it was a Web 2 kind of app, but there had all the Web 3 features, and if you wanted to use them and take advantage of them, you could, but it wasn't the main focus point. Um,
Yeah.
Good.
Let me now a bit shift the discussion towards, we discussed a lot of like your challenges and all the things that you did in the past. Now I would like to talk about the future. Like, what are the things that you need the most? And as a builder in the space and as a builder on Arbitrum, what are the things that you need, and what could the Arbitrum DAO, for example, do to help you? Like, what kind of support is that you would need the most?
I think first things first. I'll just say this because this is something which came in fact from Arbitrum DAO itself themselves. Was I just out of the blue, one of the Arbitrum DAO delegates, they just pinged me and they just had bought the business subscription of Huddle01 Meet, and they wanted to use this because we were one of the Orbit chain builders. And that really surprised me because I had not seen that kind of, basically, at least hands-on kind of curiosity to just try the product themselves by buying it, not just basically a free product. So I think that was one of the best kind of starts which we had, and that really made us also pretty proud of building on Arbitrum. Second was also what we are doing here right now, which is more like using Huddle, like basically dog fooding the product ourselves to make sure that we just keep on increasing it, keep on making it better. I think those things are very, very good, and I think that really solves distribution for something which is pretty hard to build, both engineering wise and also network effects wise, because it's not DeFi and doesn't have money involvement as much. So you require to have utility aspects a lot more, and that requires a lot of distribution aspects. So uh, in terms of more things, what is required is sometimes builders generally get lost in translation. How do you make sure that when there are proposals don't get lost in noise? There is more kind of support on that end, but in general, developers need, like builders need more distribution, or they need better funding instruments. And if those two things are taken care of in any aspect of possible, that really makes the life of builder building a two-sided or three-sided marketplace much, much more simpler and easier.
So let me use this opportunity to give a shout out to Paulo Fonseca, because he was this mysterious delegate that reached out to you, and actually he got us in touch because Paulo wanted Arbitrum DAO to use Huddle for our internal meetings, and as we were hosting many of them, we simply agreed. Like, it obviously made sense to use Arbitrum software for Arbitrum meetings. However, I would have to say that we did it, and we had mixed feedback. As you mentioned this when explaining the network, that if there are not too many nodes in certain locations, people in these locations will face issues when joining the calls, and that, like, with Arbitrum being very decentralized and dispersed network of individuals, some people did have issues, and some people did experience some troubles joining these calls. That's why we are still using Huddle for meetings, but not for all of them. We just,
Yeah.
for those that involve many, many people from all across the world, we usually tend to go to the more mainstream services. However, like, my question would be how to help with that. Like, how can we help you to fix those issues and to to grow Huddle so that we can actually in the future use it exclusively as an exclusive tool for DAO meetups.
No, I think you're completely right, and that because there were so many like people joining in all those calls, we really got an understanding of different geography, people joining from different places, and in general, the feedback used to come. Those were critical feedbacks, but they were also very precise feedbacks on which we used to get. For example, people not able to join by mobile phone, people were not able to join, let's suppose, via or seeing a blank screen sometimes and stuff like that. So those were really, I think that is what is needed, to be very honest. I think the feedbacks were so precise in general that really helps us fixing those. And the good part is that even after fixing those, you guys again went back to use it. I think that's a kind of to and fro which happens for, let's suppose, maximum of a few weeks before the product becomes very, very polished itself. And that's how all the products are. So I think that's what we need, like more kind of feedbacks, active feedbacks. We solve it, we go back to you again that, hey, this works well, and then once you use it again, give us feedback again. Those kind of basically passing the ball really helps in making the product much more better, because the more kind of stress test this network goes towards, the more better it will become over time. So I think that was the best way to go about it right now. Recordings and all the other things are also something which we are also actively fixing when there are a lot of kind of calls which happens in that scenario. But overall, I think I don't have any kind of recommendations there, because whenever I get feedbacks from the Arbitrum DAO, it's very, very precise in terms of the product nudges.
And I'm curious because, as we mentioned, Arbitrum is a very widespread community. And you mentioned, for example, that you are planning to increase the number of servers in Latin America, for example. Uh, and it happens so that a lot of community members are from Latin America. How should Arbitrum DAO members, like community members, engage with you if they want to join Huddle, if they wanted to, create their own nodes and share their own bandwidth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to do is that I'll just go back again to it. It's just go on to huddle01.network and you can join the network. There you can get all the details on how the networks are, how you can run this network, how you can create this network, and you get all the guides of how to run the media nodes. So how you can run the media nodes in your own command line interface if you're a developer. If you're not a developer, how you can basically delegate those nodes to someone who can run on your behalf, any other node operator who has also, if you are more towards hardware oriented person, what kind of hardware requirements do you need to have, what kind of open ports do you need to have. So you get all these details here. How can you install it completely? So it's for everyone. Anyone who wants to run node on their own laptop, it's for them. Anyone who wants to run node on a Raspberry Pi, Orange Pi, a hardware enthusiast, it's for them. Anyone who doesn't want to do both of these things or are non-technical in nature, but essentially live in Latin America or Africa and other regions and want to participate in the network, they can just essentially delegate that node to a node operator, which is here. For example, I can just go here, I go to this node operator, and I can just delegate my keys, basically my node, to them. So I just go here, I see which area they are in, I see their pings, and then I can just delegate to them. So that's how this whole network runs for everyone. So anyone can be a part of it, be it how technical or how non-technical they are.
And how much, because like if somebody is running their own node, they are doing this to get some rewards. How does this work? Because we didn't touch on this. Like how do you reward those people running the nodes?
So right now, since the nodes are on kind of testnet before it goes onto the mainnet, they are rewarded 5 T Huddle, which is testnet Huddle tokens, every day for basically providing bandwidth. And this goes on till the testnet ends. As soon as the testnet ends, we get a very good kind of detailed database of all the node operators, which has the least ping and the least amount of downtime. And based on that, we create kind of like just like how Uber creates ratings for drivers, which is like 4.9, 4.8, 4.7, and then you get tasks based on how your rating is. So similarly, something which we'll also have. And then when the mainnet happens, that's where all of these, basically all the calls which happens on not just Huddle01 Meet, but Farhouse, also Lensphere, and or all the other places, that's where you'll see all of those things calls happening starting on the network of Huddle01 itself. And now whatever revenue which Huddle01 earns, there is an 80% buyback, which makes sure that 80% buyback goes towards all these node holders. So that's how we have developed this whole tokenomics as to make sure that the value goes, basically the value is delivered for what you provide as an asset.
And so one last question in that aspect of the support for Huddle. I saw that, for example, on your website, you mentioned the Xi protocol as being one of the partners of Huddle, and Xi is also one of the
L3.
orbit chains and networks within Arbitrum ecosystem. How does it work? Like, what are they using it for, and what are the other synergies that we could see within this ecosystem? Like, what other projects could you be using Huddle and what for, and how could they engage with any partnership like that with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually so for Zai, I'll just talk about Zai first. So in Zai, they are a proper gaming project, and what they require a lot of other games to build on top of the Zai L3 itself, so the Zai network itself. And a lot of games, let's suppose it's an MMORPG game that runs a multiplayer game. What you require in a multiplayer game is to make sure that if there are multiple 7, 8 players playing at once, and they're in different parts of the world, that means Latin America, they're in Australia, India, US, how do you make sure that they're able to coordinate with each other in a very low latency fashion? So you require to have voice. So all these games, what they require is voice commands as well. And that's where we had partnered with Zai as well, where any kind of games which requires low latency, that means low audio video, for communicating between different players, they can use our SDK, which I showed to you in the middleware layer, and they can just build their own game, embed our SDK into it to make sure that a low latency audio comms happen so that the players can coordinate well with each other. That's just on Zai. In terms of other things, I was just chatting with Vic from basically GU Trade, and they want to basically have something called as trade rooms where lot of like there's a lot of this social kind of cues, and people love to shop together, people love to trade together, people love to do these kind of exercises while being in groups. So just inside their own basically they go, and since it's built on top of Camelot, so Geo Exchange people are there. In the Geo Exchange itself, we are just discussing with them as well right now. It's in basically kind of brainstorming phase, but you just go here and you can just, there will be a live room and people can just buy, sell, do any kind of activities there in themselves. So like the world is changing a lot towards the direction where people want to do things together in social, in group, and that requires a lot of audio and video aspect of things. So whatever Arbitrum community or the projects who require these kind of things, trade room being one of the use cases, games being other use cases, could also be basically be powered by Huddle01. They can just use that SDKs. Don't think about building it themselves. Just add, and basically just adding Huddle01 adds a personalization of more social life, socialification of their own applications in general. So that's the kind of interesting thing which we are seeing right now in the market. It's also, I also believe that exchanges over time will also change a lot. It will not be like a centralized exchange will be like Binance in general. There will be more social exchanges, which is like more audio and video based feature sets, and there will be a proper order book, and people can just basically buy and sell together. And so those kind of interesting things are we are seeing right now.
Cool. Can't wait to get tokens. I'm joking. Um, what do you think? Like, what about users? And the reason I ask this is because we like to think and we like to ask in these interviews about the things that DAOs could do to help builders in each of the ecosystems, right? And one of the most common answers is like, "Hey, help us get users, help us get people using this thing that we're building." And help raise attention, get more eyeballs on it, etc., etc. So how do you do on this department? Um, like how do you see that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. To get users on Huddle, you need to solve for network effects. To solve for network effects, it's just that you need to make sure that Huddle01 is integrated into Google Calendar. It's integrated into cal.com. So Huddle is not just like an app. It's basically to make sure that this app is being used, it should be basically inside all these different other infrastructures as well. That means it should be inside the Microsoft 365. It should be inside Google Google Suite. It should be inside cal.com, which is like a Calendly competitor. The more it is inside these things, the more is the chance for you to get network effects on top of your app. So that's what we encourage anyone who is interested in basically this new form of network or a new form of real-time connectivity, and basically based on your customer persona. If you love privacy, if you love basically that web 1.0 kind of world, again back this time on steroids, you could be part of this network. And that's how this user, so our users on the app level are all the people who love privacy, are creators, love distribution, want new any kind of ancillary feature sets. ICP2 is SDKs, developers who want to build awesome applications, so new breakthrough applications. They can use our SDKs for that. And the third part of that is our network, which is for any kind of people who have been running networks on Raspberry Pi or Orange Pi, or renting out their networks since Skype 1.0 days. They can just basically just use this network and also do that thing. So it's for everyone. It's for any kind of user who want to be a part of it. And for doing that, these are the steps which they can take, as I just showed on the screen share as well.
Awesome. Before we wrap it up, I would like to ask you about like what are the plans for the future? Like what is the Huddle01 Grow going to look like for the next like 3, 6, 12 months?
Yeah, for the next 3, 6, 12 months, it's been pretty awesome. The last, we have just crossed a milestone of 1 million minutes of meeting, 1 million meetings, 500 million minutes of meeting. That we're just crossing, we'll be crossing 1 billion minutes of meeting by in next 3 months. And that's a huge number. That means a lot of people are doing a lot of talking and coordination on Huddle01. So I'm very, very excited about that, because the more demand that comes on the app side, the more there is demand on the network side. It's a chicken and egg, and we have kind of solved that on the demand side. In the next 6 months, the network becomes super big. Like the network has 3,000 nodes, but it goes towards 10,000 nodes. And as soon as it goes toward 10,000 nodes, then we become big enough to compete with hyperscalers like AWS, GCPs of the nature. And then in next 9 months, it becomes better than hyperscalers, GCP. What you're talking about here, that how does Huddle01 app becomes better than Zoom in a lot of use cases, that starts to happen. And then in next 9 months, we go to Zoom and say that, hey, don't pay millions of dollars to AWS and GCP. Use this network of 10,000 node operators. It's way cheaper. It's like that whole game of not going to Hayat or but essentially using Airbnb. We reach that level in next 9 months. That don't go to Hayat, don't pay that much amount of money, but use this network way cheaper, way better. And that's what we see in next 3, 6, and 9 months.
Perfect. Well, hopefully we can be able to circle back in that time and see how things are going. We like to do this thing where we want to circle back with the people that we interview on the podcast and have another episode down the line and see how things have fared for them.
Absolutely. It's also an IPFS, so I have to, whatever I said, it will all be on the record. So I hope that we are able to be on the what we said in the
Yes,
promise.
yes, sir. The blockchain doesn't lie, right?
Blockchain doesn't lie.
All right. Well, Ayush, before we wrap up, is there anything final that you want to say, given the opportunity?
Yeah, actually, I'll just say that I just did a screen share, showed to you what we have been building. Real-time connectivity network will be one of the most important uh, projects and things in the Web3 space over time. And for that, if you are part of any of the, if you're interested in any of the aspects of Huddle01 on the app side, on the middleware side, on the network side, feel free to basically go towards huddle01.com. You'll find all the details there. I am very, very active on Twitter. My handle is Ranjan3118. I will be happy to hear your feedbacks as critical as possible, so that we can help build. And I'm really thankful uh, and very glad that we are building on top of Arbitrum. I think that's the best support which we could have got. And I'm very excited on how the journey, as the mainnet arrives of Huddle01, how this our layer 3 fares in that. And I'm pretty stoked about that part of our journey as well. So thank you so much again.
Absolutely. Well, Ayush, thank you for being on the podcast. Christoph, thank you for co-hosting, and for everyone listening. Catch you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you and see ya.
See you.